Land diving is an initiation rite in the South Pacific that's been practiced by the men of Easter Island for centuries. It is, well, just what the name says. It's diving, but on land. Men and boys in the South Pacific on an annual basis construct towers. These towers made of bamboo are some 50 to 100 feet high, and affixed to the top of the towers are two vines. Those vines are just maybe 7-8 feet shorter than the height of a tower. The boys who undergo this initiation rite tie those two vines to their ankles and, just like the name says, dive straight towards the earth. The object of any good dive is to hurtle straight headlong from the top of the tower towards the ground before nothing more than a couple of jungle vines break your fall. Land diving is crazy, and rituals like land diving beg the question, why? Why in the world would billions of adolescent boys across time and place undergo dangerous activities to show themselves, quote, manly? The old saying goes, boys will be boys, but there is perhaps an overlooked desire in the male psyche equally worthy of note. Boys want to be men. Held within the mind's eye of every wild-eyed young boy is an image, not of who he is, but of the man that he wants to become. The trick to ensure that boys become good men is making sure they have the right picture in their minds. That's a difficult thing to do in today's culture because, after all, in today's culture, masculinity has a bad reputation, or you might say a, quote, toxic reputation. For that reason, boys, including young boys growing up in the church, they don't have an image of good, wholesome masculinity in their minds. And it's for that reason that the church has not only an option, but indeed a responsibility to cultivate a deeply sacred understanding of masculinity. The church teaches us that humanity comes in two kinds, male and female. And John Paul II is famous for saying that it's only in the duality of the masculine and the feminine that the word human finds its fullest realization. The church teaches that God made humanity male and female, and men and women are different. Thus, what you might call the flourishing of men and women in masculinity and in femininity is a deeply good, a deeply holy thing. For that reason, masculinity is not toxic, unlike some influencers in the culture might tell you. In fact, masculinity is a deeply sacred thing. So today we're going to talk a little bit about masculinity, about what good and holy, authentic masculinity actually looks like. And to begin that reflection, we're going to start with the very first man. We're going to talk about Adam. So you might recall Adam in the Garden of Eden exists as the very first human being of the whole human race. God places him in the garden, and in the garden, Adam has his first human experiences, and those experiences of Adam as a male are all Adam encountering the things of the garden. So Adam encounters the dirt, the plants, the animals of the garden. He realizes his own dignity, his own superiority over those things. And then eventually, God, in Adam's sleep, removes his rib as something that symbolizes Adam's equality with Eve, Eve's equality with Adam, and creates Eve. Adam says, "This, alas, is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh," and the perfect union of Adam and Eve results. Now, I want to make an observation about the progression of Adam from the time of his first experiences in the garden to his experience in his encounter with Eve. Adam's experience of life began with the things of the garden before he ever encountered another person in the garden, before he ever encountered Eve. He sort of developed a specialization, if you will, with things before he had an encounter with a person. But when Adam did encounter a person, all of the things of his life became about the person of his life. So you might say that Adam, it's probably reasonable to think, became pretty good at cultivating the things of the garden. But Scripture says that in none of the things of the garden did Adam find a helper fit for him, a partner, if you will, with whom he could go throughout his life. It wasn't until he encountered Eve that he finds somebody who can return his gaze, who constitutes another human being with whom he can be in deep, intimate relationship. And when that happened for Adam, All of the things of Adam's life became about the person of his life, became about Eve. Now, psychologists for decades have known that male human beings have a little bit of a predilection, a disposition, generally speaking, for things over people. For example, in a 2021 study in infant development, researchers at the University of California, Los Angeles found that female infants were more sensitive to things like facial expressions and other social stimuli, whereas male infants were more perceptive to what might be called mechanical or inanimate stimuli. Boys, from the very beginning, at least oftentimes, have more of a disposition towards things over people. And that's not a bad thing. After all, men are called to be providers, to work with the things of the garden, or transcending the garden, to work with the things of the world more broadly and to provide for their families. But ultimately, masculinity is about more than provision or protection. It's about much more than working with the things of the world. Masculinity becomes mature when, with Adam, all men who are called to holiness orient everything in their life towards the people of their life. Want to find out more about masculinity, about what it means to be a good man? Go ahead and click the link for the article below. Thanks for joining, and go set the world on fire.